Now that we have Give installed, let's take a look at some of the setup. On the left is a Donations menu item. Let's go right down to Settings. And as I mentioned before, this is based on Easy Digital Downloads, so this should look very, very familiar. Right at the top is an option for Test Mode. I recommend leaving it in Test Mode until you're really ready to start accepting real money. That way, if you make any mistakes, the impact is much, much less. But don't forget to take it out of Test Mode when you are ready to accept money. Otherwise, your transactions won't get you anything. Here is a list of the pages that Give wants to use. There's a success page, a failed transaction page, and a donation history page. Now, Give created these pages for us when we installed it, and you can see them here under Pages, right here. And so you really only need to change these if you want to build your own pages. I don't really recommend it. They're fairly simple, and it's just a headache if you want to mess around with it. You can choose a base country, a currency position, a thousand separator, and a decimal separator. Next, we'll look at payment gateways. Out of the box, Give comes with PayPal Standard and Offline Donation and Test Payment. Test Payment doesn't actually ask for any payment information, so that's what I use while I'm setting up a site, because then I can test it without having to enter in a fake credit card every time. Offline Donation is for things like checks or cash in an envelope. And then there's PayPal Standard. If you're comfortable with PayPal and you like it, then you can begin immediately using it. Now, because PayPal Standard is not checked, it's not actually usable on my site. So if someone were to try to give right now, they would not see PayPal as an option. If I check it, then PayPal becomes an option. You can choose a default gateway. I don't recommend you have more than one or two gateways available to people. Otherwise, it just gets confusing. People don't know the difference between Authorize.net and Stripe and PayPal and all those things. PayPal is pretty recognizable. So I would choose either PayPal and one other, or only the one other. If you use Stripe, it simply asks them for their credit card information. They don't care what processor you're using. I'm going to leave Test as the default right now. If you're going to use PayPal, you'll need to enter in some information here. Your PayPal email, a style page if you wish to, and then what type of transaction this is. Read this information carefully. PayPal has some very specific rules about donations, and before you start accepting donations through PayPal, you should really understand all of their policies. And then lastly, there's an option to disable PayPal IPN verification. It says if donations are not getting marked as complete, then check this box. This forces the site to use a slightly less secure method of verifying donations. It's slightly less secure, but not really insecure, and it works. So you want to leave this unchecked if you can, but check it if you need to. And then here we have some options for the offline donations. This lists the instructions on how to mail a check. And then it's possible to send an email with this information as well. For display options, you can optionally disable the CSS which comes with Give. I don't recommend this. They put a great deal of work into it, and it looks pretty sharp on almost every theme. However, if you know what you're doing and you want to really restyle it all, you can simply turn off all the default CSS with this. And remember the welcome screen we saw when we first enabled it? We can choose to deactivate that welcome screen so that if you're activating and deactivating Give fairly regularly, you don't see that screen every time. For the post types and taxonomies, I'm going to come back to that in a later video because it'll make a lot more sense once you see what's going on. Give can send a variety of emails, and this sets up an email template. There's a default and a plain text. If you choose default, then you can optionally include a nice logo at the top, the from name and the email, And then there's a donation email receipt. This thing I highlighted is called a template tag. And right down here is a list of all the template tags you can use. And it will simply print in this email the proper information for that template tag. And then we have donation notification emails. And that is going to go to the people listed in this box. By default, it's the site owner, but you can make it anyone. Then down here, you can optionally disable admin notifications. When someone gives, a session variable is installed in their browser so that when they come back, the site knows who they are. Then they can view their receipts without having to log in. You can choose how long that session should live. A week is the longest. You can optionally remove all data on uninstall. This would wipe out any campaigns that you had and give you a completely fresh install. I can't really think of a reason why you would want to do this, unless you mess things up really badly and you really need to start over. And lastly, you can disable the content filter. It says if you're seeing extra social buttons, related posts, or other unwanted elements appearing within your forms, then you can disable WordPress's content filter. And there's a link to learn more about that. And lastly, there's a page to get you your system info. This is for your server, not your desktop machine or your laptop. You probably don't need this information unless something goes wrong and you ask for support from the Give team. Then they will probably ask you for this information. And there's a button right here, so you can click and download it as a text file. That's it for the settings. In our next video, we'll take a look at building some forms and accepting donations.